demonstrate improved performance by intervention. And the last 2 years have been a stack of articles saying because the methodology is so hard to generate, because you can have one cohort of kids and next year you'll have a cohort that's so different that you can't look at comparisons. It doesn't work. So I don't know how we're going to go with this. It's going to be very interesting. And the data from this project is going to be interesting to watch, because even though you will all know it's working and the kids are different, you may not be able to see it in some of the data. And that's going to be fascinating. But that's not what really happens. What really happens is this. When there's more misbehaviour, there's more teacher stress, because they're not used to it. It's like the girls' school. You know, they've never done that before. They've never openly refused to cooperate before. It's something I'm not used to. It's something I don't know what to do with, really. And that can lead to the stuff that I showed you. And again, you don't need to write any of this down unless you want to, but the message is clear. When they control us, we act in inappropriate ways. In fact, totally counterproductive in terms of techniques. Things that are not going to work, because those things lead to all those outcomes. And other research shows they actually disconnect from school and all, the school work itself. They hate your subject if you're teaching secondary, and then you're locked in. Everybody's locked in. No one can get out. And that's what I'm sort of fighting. I'm trying to make people aware of it. They're sort of aware of it already because it resonates. I don't know why, but there are other sources of these data. For example, this is a study out of New South Wales. If we're dealing with academic behaviour, we are very professional. We recognise the good behaviour, the good learning behaviour. We rarely criticise the bad learning behaviour. This is very professional. So we're doing the right thing, really, according to theory. When we're dealing with social behaviour, we do exactly the opposite. We rarely recognise the good social behaviour. We don't say, thank you for coming on time. It's good to see you brought your stuff. But we're quick to criticise when people don't come on time and don't bring their stuff. Now, my analysis is even interesting for me, because my guess is the A's and the B's are in there. Think about it. The kids who are your A's and B's, the ones who want to learn, feel they can, make an effort, really give you too much trouble, they're probably in there. So they come in and out of a class and they're having a good time. They're validated, they're part of the system. These kids are probably the illiterate ones that we throw out. They're the kids who aren't having a good time, and it's not going to get any better unless we can change the data. So, people come into a room like this and half of them are having a totally different experience than the other half in terms of their relationships with that teacher, which is really interesting to see. Now, you don't see it as much that was secondary. You don't see it as much in primary. However, you should know, when I compared primary and secondary, it was very interesting. You can guess this probably. Primary students report more discussion with their teachers, more recognition from their teachers, more involvement in the setting of the whole thing, more hinting and more punishment than the secondary students. But there's no difference for aggression. So they are just as angry at times in primary as they are in secondary. And if you look at the figures, it's quite interesting, because it says some interesting things. Again, at least sometimes. So 41% of teachers say they are at least sometimes yelling in anger at kids who misbehave, and 65% of kids say they are. Who do you believe? Doesn't really matter, does it? Because it's too much and no one wants to do it. No, you only do it when you're controlled. No one actually wants to do this stuff. They make you, and they make me. And by the way, I went back to teacher year at one point, like a sabbatical year, and I did all the things I say don't do. Because they're so good at it. They've had years of experience and I didn't. So they sort of got me at times, and I would just do stupid things, like find myself keeping the whole class in. Or I remember one, when I get to D's, you'll love this. The kid had a year 11 had a year 7 by the neck against a fence. His feet were off the ground, but he wasn't actually choking. He was uncomfortable. Now, And I was, it would have been better if it touched the ground. And I was on yard duty, and I should have said something really clever, which I've been teaching teachers to say for years, like, look, I can see you're trying to get even, but I don't think he's your problem, really. That would have been so smart, because, that would have made him reflect, wouldn't have attacked his self-concept, couldn't have made him worse. Very good. Dreykus would have been really pleased with me. So what did I say? I said, what sort of an animal are you, son? and afterwards I thought, oh no, because they're good at it. They can just look at you. They go and practice their expressions, I think. They can just look at you and they can take control of you in a second. So it's out there. Oh, by the way, you should realise it's going to get complicated once you put signs up. One of the things I used to say, it was really cute. You could say, okay, look, I heard the bell, but no one's leaving because we didn't cover everything we need to cover today. So we're going to work in lunchtime. I know it's lunchtime. We're going to work in lunchtime, and as soon as we're finished, that's when you will leave. Now, that is not so uncommon in a secondary school. Now imagine if someone said to you, Mr. Lewis, you're right, there's been a lot of misbehaviour here and we've wasted a lot of time, but I didn't do anything wrong. Could I go, please? Now, seriously, put your hand up. If you were the teacher, would you want her to say that? Think deeply. Raise your hand if you seriously would like that student to say that at that point in time. I'm waiting for hands. Okay. And then she points to the sign on the wall. What are you going to do? She could even say, do you realise, Mr. Lewis, that in 1994 Australia ratified a United Nations Convention and Article 14 says you can't keep hostages. So they're not going to be that good, but they might say, look, I'm feeling uncomfortable and it's unfair and it says on the wall. So they could say, they pin you on your own sign, So once they're up there, it's going to be really curious to see what happens with these kids. Because, the alternative is, good morning, Year 9, shut up. Good morning, Year 9. Look, be quiet, you idiot. I've got a phenomenal, that's it, I've had it with you, get out. I've got a phenomenal lesson on rights. you can just see. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, huh? No? But it sort of could happen. It just could happen because we're controlled by them so much that we're not really functional sometimes. So that's the issue. How do we take back that control? And that's going to be what I'm going to talk about. But now I'll show you a slightly more complicated analysis, just because it's worth knowing this. Oh, I like this one. You know what this one shows, by the way? Jewish humour is alive and well. Look at that. It's really cute. And when we looked at it, we've just written an analysis which says they're not affected by being yelled at, which they're not. Everyone yells at everybody there, so they're just not affected by it. You stand at a bus stop and you're waiting for people to come to blows, and they're just talking, it seems. So it's really interesting. There are cultural differences that were coming out of our data. That's what I've been doing last month. But it was just so. But you can see there are differences, but there's too much of it. No matter what it is, teachers say there's too much, but then it's a problem for sure. Okay, now here comes a more complicated analysis. Now, there are the six. Group them. On your table, group them. What come as packages? Do you know a teacher who can be described in terms of one or two or three of these? Do you think there's typical packages of any kind where sort of certain techniques go with other techniques? Because I can show you what the computer did with all this data. So you try first, see if you can group them. There are three theoretical packages at least, but I'm curious to see what you know. In your school, take one like hinting. If a teacher's a hinting sort of teacher, what else is that teacher likely to be doing?